Hi, I'm Mike Hutjens, Extension Dairy Specialist at the University of Illinois, along with Jim Baltz, Instructional Design Specialist. We're going to discuss pricing drought-stressed corn in 2012. Our learning objectives include to determine the price for standing corn that can be used for corn silage under drought conditions, factors that should be considered by both the sellers and the buyers from their point of view, and then finally understand how risk impacts that price of that when trying to decide a cost value or a pricing value. So the big question, we see this residue in the field. Do you see the $20 bills that I see there? And so the question in 2012 is, should we feed it? Should we use it as fertilizer or should we use it for bedding? I would suggest in 2012 we will seriously look at feeding it to provide a feed resource for our ruminant animals. So if you're a buyer, what factors should you consider? Well, here they are. Number one, what is the actual nutrient content of the crop? Yes, we're going to have to do some forage testing, and yes, there will be variation. How high are the nitrate levels in the crop? Especially important if we're not going to go through a fermentation cycle with this, harvesting as a hay crop, for example. Next, how well will the crop ferment? These feeds are going to have to be wet, probably in the range of 35 to 40% for baleage or in bags. Certainly, if we're going to look at as a typical corn silage fermentation, 30 to 35% dry matter. We will inoculate. And then how much risk are you willing to take? The crop is out there. The crop farmer says it's out there. My price is X, and away we go. And then finally, what about other replacement costs? Remember, we've lost one or two cuttings of alfalfa and grasses. The ethanol plants are slowing down. As a result, we'll have less byproduct out there. Certainly, we're seeing other prices such as wheat and barley following the lead. And of course, soybean meal is very, very high as well. So those are going to be factors. What about a seller, someone who's got some drought-damaged corn and has no livestock to feed it to at this stage of the game? What should he or she consider? Well, how does selling the crop impact crop insurance and government programs? That's key. We will not answer that today because there's variation from county to county, from state to state. Next, what nutrients will I need to replace if some of the residue or all the residue is taken as silage? And finally, what is the most economical benefit to sell or leave in the field? Let's try to answer those questions as well. So let's calculate some various pricing options to consider. Remember, you'll have to customize this for your operation or for your area, depending if you are the buyer, the seller, the consultant, or the extension worker. We're going to assume in this example a field has 2.4 tons of dry matter per acre, which is about 6.9 tons per acre of 35% dry matter corn silage, and it contains 25 bushels of corn per acre. Go to one of our other modules and you can actually calculate this value so you can be much more accurate. Dave Fisher just recently updated the value of the fertilizer that is in the corn stalks. We're going to value nitrogen, and his prices are listed there. Again, you will customize that. It will probably be different from Illinois than it will be, for example, in Pennsylvania, or it might be in California. So 24 pounds of nitrogen, 8 pounds of phos, and 32 pounds of potassium. Those are the prices. So Dave's calculation is about $38 to $39 N/P/K per ton of dry matter. No value is associated with organic matter at this point. But again, if you're the seller, you must consider that. No calculation for erosion control, for example, in the winter. So then we look at this 25 bushels per acre. The price we used was $7.50 a bushel. This price changes daily. So you have a value of the corn. Then you have to take away from that the harvesting costs, and Dave has suggested $30 per acre, trucking costs at $5, and drying costs if you're going to take the corn out of there. And so it says that after harvest costs are removed, that corn is worth about $5.86 per bushel. So you can see already there is a difference from what we're harvesting at 25 bushel. So now let's look at the value of the standing corn. Remember, our example, 2.4 tons of dry matter per acre. We've got basically 25 bushel times 56 bushel weight as is. So you can see we've got 1,400 pounds of corn grain out there, or 7/10 of a ton. We subtract that from our base 24 dry matter, and you can see that we're going to be close to about 1.7 ton of corn stalk residue or corn stalks out there. The value was $146 per acre at this point. our 1.7 tons times the fertilizer value from Dave Fisher means that there's a value of about $65 per acre out there as well. So we add those two numbers together, and that's where your $211.78, if you want to carry your numbers there, that is the value of the corn and the stalks. If you are the seller out there, that's about $88 per ton of dry matter, or ends up, if you're going to make that into a silage, you have to do that very, very quickly after you harvested the corn, you'd have about $31 per ton at 35% dry matter. Very important numbers, so we'll let you think those through here and adjust them, but basically we value the corn, we value the stalks, we back the value out, we use the fertilizer value, and we end up with a value in that $31 range. So let's summarize that again. For some of us who are thinking right now, we have this field that we have determined 5.4 tons of dry matter per acre, or basically 6.9 tons per acre at 35% dry matter silage. So the break-even price would be about $212 per acre. That ends up being about $89 per ton if we take the grain and the corn stalks at this point, or if you're buying it as wet silage, $31. My argument is I would price everything on dry matter, and I would weigh my trucks, my wagons, however we're harvesting it. Way too much slippage out there, as the dry matter really varies on me, and does the field variation occur as well. So then let's look at pricing various types of corn silage in 2012. We're going to use two tools. We're going to use a new tool that some of you may not have seen from the University of Wisconsin called FeedVal 12, and there is the website if you'd like to go and visit that. Dr. Victor Cabrera has put this together, and then we'll also look at Sesame, which is a little more familiar to many of us online. That is the existing The Ohio State program as well. Very powerful PowerPoint to look at here. And so let me walk you through it, but you may see many other messages here. What FeedVal 12 does, it allows you to put in local prices, and Jim Baltz has put in local prices as for late July here, 2012. You can select nutrients that are most important. In this example, we are using crude protein, rumen degradable protein, energy content, lipid, physical effective NDF, and then a calcium value. And then we're going to indicate the value of the feed based on other available feeds in the area. So if the price of soybean meal goes up, that raises the value of protein for all the other feeds. If distillers grains go up, that's going to drive the price. So let's look across the first one, and then we'll skip right to the bottom. Or better off, let's go right to the bottom. There's corn silage on the bottom. Notice the nutrient value we have listed there. That becomes very important. So you can see the level of nutrients. This is very close to NRC at this stage of the game. If you go across, you can see that we had it priced in here at $50 per ton. We did not check it. Now, that's important because it means corn silage did not drive the value. That's important. That's why it's not checked. So that $50 you're saying, Hutjens and Baltz, you made a mistake. That should be 65 or 70, whatever you want it to be. That did not impact this one. And you can see the value of the corn silage. Normal corn silage is about $86 a ton with these assumptions. Next line down is drought-stressed corn silage. Notice the assumptions we made here. Now, the protein is critical because soybean meal is very high, and so this number really can drive price. But remember, drought-stressed corn is driven by nitrates, and that is not protein. In fact, that'd be a big negative rather than a positive, so be well aware, be careful on that one. But you can work your way across here, and you can see that silage is worth about $75 a ton, so about $10 a ton less. But we assumed certain nutrient values, and that's why you're going to have to test. Now we come down to corn stalks. I mean, we've taken 15, 20, 30, 50 bushels. Something came out of that field. There's the nutrient values that we put in the computer. Again, you will customize that from time to time, and you can see the value of that drops down to about $56 a ton. So there's some very important numbers. Now remember, we've just targeted two important numbers, high-end number and low-end number. Remember, we talked about fertilizer value. So if you're the buyer or the seller, someplace these numbers are going to meet, and you can argue back and forth. We can now look at wheat straw, and again, you can read across there. You can see wheat straw is valued at $129 a ton. Wow, big time number as far as that goes. You can look at distillers grains, $394 a ton. You can look at corn. A break-even value is $7.50 a bushel. That's about where it's at. Maybe it's a little bit low right now. And you can look at the other feeds as well. Fuzzy cottonseed, $3.50 a ton. So a lot of interesting numbers here besides looking at the bottom three. But that's the purpose. Look at the bottom three. So you can see about $10 shift to drought-stressed corn silage that had grain in it. And then if you got just corn stalks, it drops down about $20 a ton. Now, this is exciting because you can actually run this online. So you can actually go to the website, plug your numbers in, and generate numbers for yourself. So let's summarize the silage value that we learned in the feed val calculations of 35% corn silage, looking at $75. Drought-stressed corn silage is calculated, and $85 a ton for normal corn silage. You then can back out harvest costs, and notice a big range here, depending on field conditions and yield. Storage costs, a shrink of about 13%. And then you can back into this number, and notice we did not put a value in for risk. This could be very important, especially with drought-stressed corn. That means the price of the standing corn out there for drought-stressed could be in that $45 range, and for normal corn silage in that $60 range at 35% dry matter, again, considering risk value. Let's then look at another way to price based on nutrient value of corn silage. This is information from The Ohio State University. Notice our two co-workers there, Bill Weiss and Diane Shoemaker, and we are going to look at their software program. Their program looks at nutrients a bit differently. There are four basic nutrients that drive the value of any feedstuff: is net energy, metabolizable protein, and you cannot test for that. You cannot go to a lab and get that. That comes through on a software program. Non-effective NDF, again, you will not be able to test that. And then effective NDF. But those are calculated assigned values using primarily NRC values. And you can come out here and you can get a value of what those are per cost. For example, net energy here, the cost, nutrient cost is about 15 cents for mcal. You can see metabolizable protein, 35. So these numbers have really gone up, especially the first two, over time as we look at value. We then took Sesame and had it run here in Illinois. So this is not Bill Weiss's data. This is Illinois data. We looked at prices in central Illinois, feed prices delivered to the farm in the first week of July. And the value per wet ton is about $84 per ton for that corn silage, almost identical to feed val 12. So you can see both of these programs do a very nice job estimating values, and then you can work backwards and do what ifs with those different software programs. So what's our take-home message? Well, certainly there's going to be a wide range in values for corn standing in the field based on an example. And remember, our example, we made assumptions on bushels per acre and tons per acre. It becomes a very critical number. But if you use our assumptions, you can see for a buyer, the break-even price is $45 to $60 per ton. You can see if you're the seller, the bottom line number you're going to be looking at as $31 per ton of 35% dry matter. Big range, big range. If you're buying lots of tonnage, there's a huge difference there. So there's going to be lots of discussion going, determining where we should be, depending if you're the buyer or the seller. And also remember to factor in risk when you look at these various prices. Well, we certainly welcome you to come to our website. We have a couple things happening. First, we encourage you to look at our online courses. You can see the URL. This fall, there'll be a class by Dr. Wallace on reproduction, and there'll be one on dairy management led by myself and a couple other co-workers here. You can also come to our Illinois Dairy Net. There is more information there as well, and the URL is listed there as well. Thanks. Have a great day.